I want to take a minute and respond to this comment. Um, this person is suggesting, I believe, that when I say that the Russians are trying to erase the Ukrainian language, culture, and people from the world because they don't believe that Ukraine exists. They believe that Ukrainians are just Russians, right? They call them the little Russians, little Russia, because there's nothing pretentious, insulting, or elitist about the attitudes we get from Moscow, right? He goes on to say that it's a straw man argument. The Russians do recognize Ukraine. They always do. They always do. And that's why they're asking for negotiations. Ooh, now they're asking for negotiations. Interesting. So there's two critical Russian lies in this one sentence that we have to understand. It's disinformation of the worst sort based on untruths. The first is the notion that, hey, now that we're losing, we do recognize there's a Ukraine. This is nonsense. Every day on Russian TV, the Russians are saying things like this. The Ukrainians say we are a separate nation. What nation? From where? I believe that Ukraine doesn't exist. Right there. And then this nonsense from Vladimir Putin, again, saying that Ukraine is a creation of Russia and belongs to Russia. So now that they are losing, that they are on the back foot, that they are isolated in the world, the most sanctioned nation on earth, their people are unwelcome in any civilized country. They want to walk this back. While meanwhile, on Russian TV every night, the Russian people are being told there is no Ukraine. These are just Russians, who we have a disagreement with. It's not a war. It's a special military operation. Ludicrous nonsense. When your whole life and your whole understanding of your position in the world is based on lies, when those lies are challenged and exposed, what do? You tell more lies. That's a recipe for cultural suicide. And we're watching the Russians commit it every day. That's what this is. It's cultural suicide. It's not the West destroying Russia. It's Russia destroying itself because it won't give up the lies. And then this other lie, that the Russians are asking for negotiations, as if the Russians ask for anything. The Russians demand, they insist, and they back their demands and insistence up with guns and death and bombs. Make no mistake. The notion that they want negotiations, which at this point they undoubtedly do, because they'd like to freeze this conflict where it's at, because it is costing them everything to keep fighting against a country that's less than a third their population, against a country that a few years ago, nobody would have thought they could stand up to Russia. Against a country without a navy, the Russian Navy is hiding. Against a country without an air force, the Ka-52 helicopters all had to move out of Ukraine and into Russia where they were safe. It's ridiculous. It's a joke. It's not to be taken seriously because one cannot negotiate with terrorists. And that's what Russia has devolved into. It has devolved into a terrorist state that cannot even keep its own infrastructure intact. Today we saw 2 crash landings of Russian civil aviation. So So 2 jets had to crash land. Luckily, no one was killed, not in these incidences, but it's coming. It's coming because they've stolen these planes from the West. They're not theirs. They're stolen, make no mistake. And they're cannibalizing them using old parts or using not certified parts, which in a plane is a problem because at 30,000 feet, there's no pulling over when your knockoff parts from Iran fail. They're losing their civil aviation. They're regressing as a culture. They've got a red flag from the International Civil Aviation Authority. There's only 3 other countries in the world that have red flags from the Civil Aviation Authority: Bhutan, Liberia, and the Congo. I mean, that's the level that the Russians have regressed to because they have failed. They want all the benefits of Western civilization, but they don't want to bring it to their own people. They want to just steal everything for themselves, the people at the top. Well, that's not how it works. You can't benefit from the rules-based international order and not play by the rules. And that's why 3 years from now, there won't be a Russia that anybody can recognize. They are destroying themselves in Ukraine. Make no mistake.